Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this stage. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב
I'll invite us to please be seated. I'm Cantor Julia Cadrain. I'm the senior cantor here at Temple Israel, and I'm honored to be among you as we gather to honor and to remember Judge Alan Nevas. As we appreciate his life and his storied career, we know there are many ways that we could describe him. We could say that he was warm and loving, loyal, family-oriented, one of our community's pillars. And yet, we also know that these words pale in comparison to who he was to each of you. Husband to Janet, father to Andy, Debbie, and Nathaniel, father-in-law to Jody, Jonathan, and Leslie, grandfather to Zachary, Chloe, Maxwell, Adam, Alexa, and Seth, brother to Dorothy, brother-in-law to Judith, uncle to Janet, Susan, Ellen, Joshua, and Matthew, beloved cousin, family member, mentor, colleague, and friend. At a time of grief, we find comfort in the words and the melodies of our tradition and in the presence of sacred community. We turn to Psalm 121, which says, Esa einai el heharim, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Even at a time of loss, we can be soothed by the embrace of community and by the knowledge that we are not alone. Shir lamalot esa einai el heharim mehayin yavo Ezri mehim Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz Ayiten lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha Al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh Velo yakeka Ve'areach malayla Adonai yishmorcha mikora Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha Me'ata ve'ad olam Me'ata ve'ad olam. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will keep you from all harm. God will watch over your life, your coming and going, now and always. The prophet Ecclesiastes wrote, "For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. This is a moment to speak for a few representatives of Alan's family and community to share words of memory and love and tribute. We'll begin this part of our service with hearing from Alan's former assistant, Jill.
Good morning. It is my privilege to reflect on the life of a great man. My name is Jill Lavine, and for 44 years, I've known Judge Alan Nevas as a boss and a friend. We met in 1981 when President Reagan appointed him as the U.S. Attorney for Connecticut. At the time, I served as the administrative officer of that office. Judge Nevas immediately got to work studying the pending cases, forming bonds with the employees and the agents who helped us develop the cases prosecuted by our office, and ultimately became one of the most respected U.S. attorneys in Connecticut history. In 1985, President Reagan again nominated Judge Nevas to the federal bench, and upon confirmation, he was designated to sit in Hartford. He asked me to be his judicial assistant, position I held until 1996. His first two clerks, Lucia Brooks and Peter Youngblood, and I organized his chambers, developed a working protocol while the judge digested the cases assigned to him. It was a big undertaking, but together we formed the beginnings of our court family. Working with Judge Nevas was the honor and privilege of my life. He entrusted me with running his chambers as a friendly, a welcoming, dignified place to come for all who had business with the court. He had an open-door policy and never stood on formalities. We all, his clerks, his court reporter, his courtroom deputy, and I ate lunch with him every single day, gathering around his large conference room, talking about everything under the sun. Being an avid traveler, he often told us stories relating to his travels throughout the world. He was a diehard New York Giants fan and a big supporter of Syracuse University basketball, his undergraduate alma mater. One of the court security officers in Hartford was a big UConn fan, and when Syracuse played UConn and Syracuse won, he was known to leave a bag of oranges on the CSO's desk. Occasionally, members of his family would visit chambers, and I was always moved when he would grab them and envelop them in his arms, no matter who was there. He loved his family as much as life itself and was so proud of each of you. His clerks were his extended family, and he was also so proud of all of you. When he would learn of your advancements in legal professions and in life in general, it brought joy to his face. The judge was always serious when presiding over cases before him, but nothing brought him more joy than presiding over naturalization ceremonies. The courtroom would be filled with immigrants from all over the world, some dressed in their native garb, and he would talk of his grandfather, an immigrant also, telling the new citizens that his grandfather never would have believed that his grandson would become a United States district judge. His message to them was that in America, anything is possible with hard work and determination. He often told me that naturalization ceremonies were the thing that he enjoyed most in being a federal judge. It was the honor of my life to work for him and know Judge Nevas. I've never met anyone who loved his family more, who worked tirelessly every day to serve the citizens of this country, who took these matters before the court seriously, but when a defendant was remorseful and he found a way to help him get his life back on track. He was a judge's judge, one saying to me, Judge Nevas was a mensch. In closing, I want to thank the Nevas family, and especially Mrs. Nevas, for sharing the judge with me, his clerks, and the members of his staff. Each of us hold a wonderful memory of in the depths of our hearts of the time we spent with him. He was my second father. I truly felt that he would always be here. But my faith tells me he is here with us, watching this beautiful tribute and probably thinking, move on. I will miss talking with him and seeing him, but his memory will live in my heart and be with me forever. Thank you, Judge, for always being my friend and for blessing my life. I will love you forever.
We'll call on Alan's son-in-law, Jonathan.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Abrams, and Deborah's husband. Deborah and I met in Costa Rica on a back road trip in 2000, and fairly soon thereafter, I met Judge and Mrs. Nevas for dinner in Westport. And boy, was I nervous. And I didn't know too much about Alan at the time, and I just heard a few stories from Deborah, and Alan's Wikipedia page was not invented yet. Apparently, Wikipedia started in 2001. But I think I successfully passed the round one dinner introduction. But I was still nervous, and I think my big sense of positivity was when I was invited to join the family for their annual trip to Martha's Vineyard. And it was the first of 25 consecutive summers that I spent with the family. And we spent every one except one, the COVID summer, with Alan and Janet. And one of my first tasks on the vineyard was to help Alan take the trash to the town dump. And I was told that getting asked to do this task was a definite sign of acceptance as a possible son-in-law. And what sealed, I think what sealed the deal was that I was accepted as the family's doctor. And pretty soon I was looking at rashes and bug bites and numerous conditions. Now, Alan knew that I was an ologist, but I'm an anesthesiologist, and somehow they thought I was a dermatologist. I think I got one correct diagnosis of shingles maybe in the 25 years. Following our marriage in 2001, I learned a lot about Alan and Janet from Deborah. I learned about family values, I learned about Shabbat dinners, and I learned, stop crying, Deborah. And I learned about who taught Deborah about Jewish values, who taught Deborah about volunteering and community involvement, and who taught Deborah about social justice. And I also learned who taught Deborah about doing the right thing. For example, in 2002, after we were married, we were riding in the cab in New York City, and Deborah turned around and found $3,600 in cash in the backseat of the cab. An apparent drug dealer had an open pocket, and the money was left in the cab. So Deborah insisted that we go to the local police precinct and drop off the money. The cab driver was not too happy, but we did indeed go and report the money and gave the money to the precinct. Later that week, we brought the case to the judge, and the judge affirmed the decision of the lower court, Deborah. So Janet told me many, many years ago that she and Alan considered me to be their third son. And this was about the same time that I lost my own dad right at the beginning of our marriage. And these are not just words. I felt Alan and Janet's guidance, support, and love throughout all these years, both through the good and the bad times. And lastly, I will miss my mid-August trips with Alan to the Chillmark store to pick up coffee and a decaf for Janet and a New York Times. And sitting on the porch with Alan was a gift I will never forget.
Alan was blessed to have 6 beautiful grandchildren who I'll invite forward now. One, Representative Lexi, to speak on behalf of the group. Zachary, Chloe, Max, Adam, Lexi, and Seth.
For us, his grandchildren, Alan Nevas, a man loved by so many for so much, was always just one thing, our Pop. The guy who would drink right out of the not-so-communal Gatorade bottle on Martha's Vineyard. The guy who would make up fake mumbling stories in our ears just to make us giggle. And most importantly, the guy who could nap better than anyone. Growing up, we all knew never to bother Pop between 3 and 5 p.m. But beyond the naps, Pop was an advocate, a man of passion and principle. He taught us the importance of fighting for what we believe in and speaking up for ourselves. I will never forget one year at a Mother's Day brunch, Pop debating the merits of the 2016 presidential candidates with whoever was brave enough to bite. I watched in a little bit of fear, but mostly in awe and admiration of the man I'm lucky enough to call my grandfather. We are so grateful for every vacation, conversation, and moment we got to share with Pop. His love for this family knew no bounds, and we will never forget the values he imparted and the example he set for us. Pop showed us the importance of family. Every single second we spent as a group of 14 stands as a testament to his love and commitment to this family. But this family would be nothing without the love and commitment between Pop and Gaga. Their relationship, spanning 65 years, is my personal metric for what true love looks like. The two of them were a unit that led us, and we are so lucky to have had them set such an incredible example of what family means. Pop, we miss you every day, and we will miss you for the rest of our lives. Thank you for everything. We love you so much.
We'll hear from Alan's children in this order: Nathaniel, then Debbie, and then Andy.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming this morning to pay your respects to my father. My family greatly appreciates your support. I learned so much from my father over the years. Sometimes they were big lessons, sometimes they were small. Sometimes they were overt, because when my dad had a point to make, you knew it. But sometimes they were subtle, and sometimes they were even unintentionally funny. For example, my dad taught me that when an opportunity presents itself, don't hesitate and instead take full advantage. I know this because when my dad spotted Vernon Jordan, a close advisor to then President Clinton, in a Chillmark parking lot, he didn't hesitate to run over, quickly introduce himself, and then strongly advocate for federal judiciary pay raises to a somewhat startled Mr. Jordan. Fortunately, the Secret Service was not called. Sometimes the lessons were very simple and straightforward. such as, if the house is too cold, never turn up the heat. Just put on a sweater. Correcting grammar, dismissing exaggerations, and fact-checking were all favorite pastimes for my dad. Yes, it could be annoying when I was young, but as my family is painfully aware, I too have a love of being right. So when my son Adam corrected my grammar the other day, I could only smile knowing that clearly a lesson of precision and accuracy had been handed down from one generation to another. But my dad also told me that there were times when restraint and respect were more important than being right. For example, when my dad was nominated to the federal judiciary and received a congratulatory phone call from then President Reagan, he astutely decided not to correct the president, who was apparently very pleased with himself for nominating the Latino judge Nevas to the federal court. He always liked telling that story. Loyalty and friendship were also highly valued by my dad. He often spoke fondly of his best friend growing up in Stanford, Erwin Brown. After high school, they lost touch with each other, but by a stroke of incredibly good fortune, they ran into each other at a Las Vegas hotel swimming pool about 20 years after they had last seen each other. They didn't miss a beat and picked up right where they left off. I know my dad would do anything for Erwin, and Erwin felt the same way. Their friendship lasted until Erwin passed away a few years ago. Integrity and honesty were of utmost importance to my dad, and he lived it every day. One time, he found a $20 bill on the street. Instead of pocketing it, he went to the police station to turn it in, just in case the kid had lost it and was looking for it. But integrity and honesty were of particular importance in his courtroom. Beware to those who entered and did not uphold those principles. One time, my dad was assigned a highly publicized case involving the mayor of Waterbury. I attended the proceedings with my mom, and the courtroom was packed. In the middle of the hearing, one of his clerks went up to my dad on the bench to whisper something to him. My dad quickly halted the hearing to quite forcefully ask if any in the courtroom was recording the proceedings, which would be a clear violation of the rules. One man meekly rose to his feet and admitted it was him. What followed was a blistering reprimand that left the rest of the courtroom afraid to speak or move, lest they be the next to receive a similar lecture. My mom and I just looked at each other and smiled. We'd seen this act before. When my dad was growing up, family was a huge focus of his life. He had many aunts, uncles, and cousins, and Sunday nights were always spent at the house of his grandparents, Morris and Ethel Nevas. I love the stories my dad would tell of how my great-grandparents came to this country with nothing, speaking no English, made their way from the Lower East Side to Connecticut, owned a grocery store in Norwalk, and raised 5 boys, including my grandfather. And how my grandfather never got past the 8th grade, but still worked hard enough through the Great Depression to send my dad to college and law school. These stories were all about hard work, the importance of family, sacrifice for those you love, and the American dream. All things my dad held dearly. He also taught me pride in being Jewish. Judaism was very important to him, and although his religious observance may have changed over the years, his connections to the traditions, the people, the history, and the state of Israel never wavered. One summer on Martha's Vineyard, I Googled greatest Jewish baseball players of all time. I read the list to him and happily listened as he reminisced about Hank Greenberg, Al Rosen, Sid Gordon, and many others. Hank Greenberg and Sandy Koufax were very much in my dad's good graces because they both declined to play in the World Series games on Yom Kippur. The lessons of Jewish pride and respect were successfully taught because one year I had to explain to my very disappointed son Max that if Koufax and Greenberg could miss a World Series game for Yom Kippur, then he could miss a Little League game for the same reason. Which brings me to baseball. You may well be aware of my dad's love for the New York Football Giants, but his first love was really with the New York Baseball Giants. A good portion of his childhood was centered around baseball, whether it was playing for the Stanford JCC team, he and his friends quizzing each other on baseball trivia, or trips to the old polo grounds to see a Giants doubleheader. My dad loved baseball. I have such strong memories of waiting for my dad to come home from work on summer nights so we could have a couch in the backyard, just throwing the ball back and forth. I loved it. All this culminated in 1977 when my dad surprised me at Hebrew school to tell me that we were going to Yankee Stadium to see the Yankees in Game 6 of the World Series. It turned out to be a very well-known game in which Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs and the Yankees won the World Series. After much prodding from my brother Andy and me, my dad even allowed us to run onto the field after the game was over amidst all the bedlam. My dad had decided to pass on his love of baseball to my brother and me, despite the fact that the owner of the Giants, Horace Stoneham, broke my father's heart when he announced at the end of the 1957 season that the Giants were moving to San Francisco. The lesson to all of this is that, as my father was fond of saying, when one door closes, another one opens. Why do I say this? Because only 1 year later, in the summer of 1958, my dad met my mom at Lake Tarleton in New Hampshire. I'm very confident that's a trade my dad would make again. My parents' marriage was really special and full of love. Yes, my dad could be annoyed at little things at times. Many a Saturday night, I'd watch as my dad's agitation grew as he waited for my mom to be ready for that night's social event. It was only a matter of time before I heard a shout from the bottom of the stairs of, "Janet, we're going to be late!" But through it all, they served as great models for Andy, Debbie, and me in our marriages and with our families, as there was never any doubt in any of us that our parents loved us and they loved each other. Today, love for each other is something we all try to emulate with our families, and I think that was his most important lesson of all.
Debbie will invite you forward.
That is a very hard act to follow, I have to say, Nathaniel. Amazing. Again, thank you all for coming today. For those of you from New Jersey, I am Debbie. Everyone now refers to me as Deborah. And I am Alan and Janet's daughter. I'm very proud to be so. This isn't in my remarks, but yesterday in the Hartford Courant, there was a really amazing article about my dad written by a reporter who used to report on the court for him, named Ed Mahoney. And I emailed him and I told him how wonderful we thought the piece was. We had read it aloud at dinner last night. And I asked him if he could send me a copy, and he emailed me right back, and he said, I met your father during his big mafia trial in Hartford, and we stayed in touch off and on for years after. When our paths crossed in court and he had time, he would give me a nod after adjourning, and we would chat in his office. He was a good man and a great judge who has been missed since his retirement and will continue to be missed. And then he wished us our sympathies, but I just thought that nod, I could just see my dad doing that in that subtle way that he sometimes had. And it means so much to all of us to see so many of you here today to pay your respects and to honor my father. This is the synagogue where I became a bat mitzvah and where our family celebrated many holidays and simchas. I will never forget my dad leading Kiddush just behind you, right in front of that window. After my bat mitzvah, crying after watching me step into my role as a Jewish adult. It's a challenge to try to distill into a few paragraphs a life as rich and well-lived as my dad's. There are so many memories and cherished moments. How to choose? My dad was a great father. He was a strong disciplinarian and didn't put up with a lot of stupid. But there was never any doubt that he loved me and my brothers and my mom, and he did not stint on his affection. He was fair and loyal, and family meant everything to him. He loved to read and learn, question and discuss. I think about our family dinners, the 5 of us sitting around that table, the things we would talk about, the subtle messages that were given to us about what was right and what was fair. And I hold them with me always. He was a wonderful pop. He was generous and charitable and led by example to his grandchildren, to all of us. He adored his grandchildren, and he was beloved by them in return, I think, as we heard. It's hard to convey what made my dad my dad. He was unique, and I was blessed to have someone like him in my life, showing me the way. I want to share a couple of quick stories. Nathaniel mentioned one of them. I'll go into a little more detail about Vernon Jordan. But I hope that they give you a little flavor of different aspects of who my father was. And by the way, how's my grammar? I should say, how is my grammar? In addition to my brothers, I think that my dad's former clerks will know why I ask. We used to have religious school on Sunday mornings. My dad liked to spend his Sunday mornings sleeping in and reading the paper. How do you get around the problem of having to drive the religious school carpool every few weekends, but still be able to have a lazy Sunday morning? My dad's answer was to throw a bathrobe on over his pajamas and a trench coat over his bathrobe, slide into a pair of slippers, ignore the looks of horror on my face, and drive the carpool. I think he actually thought I was the one with the problem. He didn't care if anyone noticed he was in his pajamas. He was just content to be who he was. So I'm going to go into a little more detail about Vernon Jordan. In 1997, my parents made good on a long-held plan to spend the month of August on Martha's Vineyard. Time on the vineyard in August has now become a cherished family tradition for us. In 1997, my dad had just been selected to lead the Federal Judges Association, and one of his main priorities was to do something about getting the federal judges a pay raise, as you heard. Bill Clinton was president, and one of his confidants was Vernon Jordan, who happened to summer on Martha's Vineyard. And it was known on the vineyard that Vernon Jordan drove a small red convertible. My dad figured if he could speak to Vernon Jordan, maybe he could make something happen with the judicial salaries. So my dad instructed us to keep an eye out for that car wherever we were driving, anywhere we were driving. This went on for 3 years. In the meantime, my dad being my dad, he realized that the only way the judicial salaries could increase was if the president's salary were to increase first, something that had not happened since 1969. He figured out who to speak to in Congress. It might have been Chris Shays, I'm not sure, to get the ball rolling. And in 1999, a bill was passed raising the president's salary, thus paving the way for the judges to get a salary increase. By the summer of 2000, with the end of President Clinton's second term looming, time was running out on the Verdon-Jordan plan. Then, one day, my dad pulled into the Chilmark post office parking lot to get the mail, and lo and behold, the little red convertible and Vernon Jordan. I think my dad went running over there. I think he was calling out, "Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan." They spoke. It didn't happen immediately or easily, but the federal judiciary has received a pay increase, and they have gotten their COLAs. I just love this story because it's so emblematic of my dad's love of being able to just work it and of his unwavering determination. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that watching It's a Wonderful Life with my dad was the best. No matter how many times he watched, when Uncle Billy would fold that $8,000 cash into the newspaper and inadvertently leave it in Mr. Potter's lap, my dad would yell, "Don't do it, Uncle Billy! Don't do it!" Every time. I will always hear his voice when I watch that movie, always. In Deuteronomy, we are instructed, "Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof." Justice, justice, you shall pursue. It's a call to uphold fairness and righteousness in all aspects of life, and it highlights the need for just judges who are guided by fairness and equity in their decisions. That was my dad. He took every aspect of that direction to heart in his courtroom during trial and sentencing, and as a father and husband and mentor. I am grateful that my dad took to heart the commandment to teach your children well, because what he taught me and my brothers and our children and our spouses about how to live life and our duty to others, I will carry with me for the rest of my days. The great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks said, "Mortality is written into the human condition, but so too the possibility of immortality in the good we do that continues long after we are here to beget further good. The good my dad did as a judge, a legislator, a mentor, a philanthropist, but most importantly as a husband, father, and grandfather, will continue to beget further good for years to come." Thank you.
And Andy, we'll invite you forward.
That's a lot of tough acts to follow. Thanks. When my paternal grandmother Eva died in 1988, her funeral was held right here. I told my dad I wanted to speak, and he said, "Of course." The morning of the funeral, the family was gathered in the rabbi's study downstairs. I pulled my dad aside and told him I didn't think I would be able to give my remarks. He asked me why, and I told him I was afraid that if I did, I would cry. He looked at me and he said in his blunt way, "Andy, it's a funeral. People cry at funerals." And so I did speak, and I did cry, and I'm glad that I did. And I'll probably cry again now, but it's okay because it's a funeral, and people cry at funerals. When we were little kids, Dad used to do silly things to make us laugh. Whenever we passed a sign on the road that said, "Do not pass," he'd say, "Look, it's a donut pass. They're passing out free donuts." When someone said sherbet, he'd invariably say, "Shoot the sherbet to me, Herbert." He would frequently say that things were copacetic. In fact, I always thought that was a made-up word that he had invented until one day when I was in college watching the news on TV and the weather person said the forecast was copacetic, and it dawned on me that it was a real word, not one of his funny sayings. When I was a junior in college, I told him I wanted to change my major from political science to English. That's fine, he said. It'll mean I'll have to come back for a 5th year, I said. No problem, he said. I couldn't believe how well the conversation was going. Then he dropped the hammer. You can come back for a 5th year if you want, but I'm not paying for it. I stuck with poli-sci. After college and before I started law school, I worked for a time at the retailer Crazy Eddie and lived at home. I think some people know this story already. One day he said to me, you can keep working at Crazy Eddie and you can keep living at home. Once again, I thought, another great conversation going really well. Once again, the hammer came down. You can keep working at Crazy Eddie and you can keep living at home, but you can't do both. I got a real job and applied to law school not too long after that. Before I started law school, I asked him if he had any advice. He said, don't fall behind. As anyone here who has attended law school knows, and I think there may be 1 or 2 of you out there, that's pretty good advice. When I was stressed out preparing for the bar exam, I asked him about some obscure point of the law. He gave me the answer and then reassured me, the only people who care about that are law professors and people who are studying for the bar. That made me feel better. And before I started my career as a litigator, once more I asked him for advice. Again, 3 words. Always be prepared. Again, spot on. That's the kind of dad he was. He didn't give long lectures about his philosophy of life. He let us know how important it was to work hard, to always tell the truth, and to establish and maintain a reputation for honesty and integrity. He gave advice when asked, but mostly he taught by example. The way he led his life, the way he treated other people. His friends included judges, governors, senators, and congressmen, as well as his colleagues at the bar and on the bench, but also artists, writers, cops, and FBI agents. I think he knew more people and had more friends than anyone I've ever known. He never forgot where he came from. He told the story of how during the Depression he came home from school one day to find his mother crying in the kitchen because they couldn't afford to pay the electric bill and the lights had been turned off. His favorite part of being a judge was conducting naturalization ceremonies, as my sister noted. He had a standard line at those ceremonies about how his grandparents had come to this country in the 1880s, and they never could have imagined that one day one of their grandsons would be a federal judge. After one particular naturalization ceremony, one of the new citizens came up to my dad and told him he was wrong about that. Of course they could have imagined one of their grandchildren becoming a judge, he told my dad. That's why they came to this country. As a judge, he said he tried to be tough but fair. Although, as one criminal defense attorney once told me, the last thing you wanted was to have your client facing a sentencing hearing before Judge Nevas on a Monday after a Giants loss. He accomplished many things in his life. He and Mom traveled to all 7 continents. In addition to a very successful private law practice, he served as chair of the Westport Board of Finance, state rep from Westport, U.S. Attorney for Connecticut, federal district court judge, and president of the Federal Judges Association. He traveled to Mississippi in the summer of 1964 to provide free legal services to civil rights activists. This was right after the murders of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwimmer. But he went there anyway, despite the danger, and despite the fact that my mom was about 8 months pregnant with my sister Debbie. He went because he believed it was the right thing to do, and he felt he had a moral and ethical obligation to do it. But all of these accomplishments pale in comparison to what he was most proud of, his family. His sister Dud, his many cousins, his nieces and nephews, Janet, Susan, Ellen, Josh, and Matt, and their spouses and kids. A nearly 66-year marriage to our mom. Mom, you often say he was your rock, but I hope you know that you were his rock. And there's no way he could have accomplished all that he did in life, professionally and personally, without you. He was the father of 3 children who he loved and who loved him back. But actually, I think he considered himself to be the father of 6 because he loved the 3 kids-in-law, Jonathan, Jody, and Leslie, just as much as Debbie, Nathaniel, and me. We never had any doubt about what a big place in his heart we had. And last, but certainly not least, the 6 grandchildren, Zach, Chloe, Lexi, Seth, Max, and Adam. Of all his many titles, sergeant, legislator, judge, your honor, his favorite one was Pop, the grandkid's name for him. I hope you all know how much he loved each of you and how proud he was of all you have accomplished. I recall earlier this month when he was hospitalized and Zach came to pay him a surprise visit. His whole face lit up when he saw Zach. Now, I don't want to leave you with the impression that he was perfect. He did have his faults. On occasion, he was known to be just a little stubborn. Strange, he's the only one in our family like that. He just might have exceeded the speed limit a bit while driving on I-95 once or maybe twice. His drink of choice was Campari on the rocks, which is basically cough medicine on the rocks. And inexplicably, his favorite sandwich was peanut butter and pickle. A holdover from the Depression, I think. Go figure. There are so many things about him that I will miss, and memories that I have of him that I will think about every day for the rest of my life. His wisdom, his common sense, his love for all of us. The family ski trips when we were kids. The biannual trips to Mexico with the Brody and Friedman cousins. And of course, all those wonderful summers on Martha's Vineyard. A family tradition which will continue, as I'm sure he would have wanted it to. Football season will never be the same without being able to go over and watch the Giants game with him. I don't know if there's a better place, just that he is no longer in this place. But I do know that one place he will always be is in my heart. Goodbye, Dad. I love you. I miss you already. And go Giants.
We thank everyone who came up and shared such beautiful tributes of love and memory. And we imagine that every person in this room has a story to share. Just because you're not up at the microphone doesn't mean you don't have a story to tell also of Alan. And we'll encourage you to continue to share those stories with one another today, tomorrow, over the coming days and weeks. That will be a beautiful way to honor him and to find comfort as you navigate this loss. Psalm 23. Adonai roi lo echsar bino deshayar bitseni al mei menuchot yenachaleini nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech meget samavet lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha Adonai roi lo echsar. Adonai roi lo echsar. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. In the Middle Ages, renowned philosopher and rabbi Moses Maimonides enumerated the qualities a judge must possess. If we didn't know better, we might think that he based his description on Judge Allen Nevas himself. Maimonides explains, judges must be wise and understanding, learned in the law, and versed in many other branches of learning. A judge must have children and must be a person of stature and good appearance. They must be able to express their views in clear and well-chosen words. They must have wisdom, humility, love of truth, love of people, a good reputation, and a humble spirit. They must be pleasant in company and gentle in speech and dealings with others. They must have a courageous heart. By our tradition's measure, Judge Allen Nevas was one of the truest embodiments of a righteous judge that any of us would have the honor and blessing to know. Allen was born in Norwalk, Connecticut on March 27, 1928, to Nathan and Eva. He became a big brother when his sister Dorothy was born. Growing up in Stamford, Allen's childhood was centered around a close-knit circle of extended family and friends. Both of his parents had many siblings, which meant Allen had 17 first cousins. Their family would spend every Sunday with grandparents in Norwalk. And while the country suffered through the Great Depression and the war, Allen's family life provided a warm and connected home base. It was from that warm and connected home base that Allen's lifelong love of learning began. He adored reading. Treasure Island was his favorite book. He attended Stamford High School and many years later was proudly inducted into the Stamford High School Hall of Fame. His love of knowledge led him to Syracuse University and New York University School of Law, and from there followed a celebrated and admirable career in law, beginning with a private practice in Westport. Allen served as a member of the Connecticut House of Representatives, a justice of the peace, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Connecticut, a federal judge, president of the Federal Judges Association, to name a few. Even in his retirement, he was a sought-after and well-respected arbitrator and mediator. And his career was characterized not only by impressive titles and professional accomplishments, but also by the way he mentored and cared for those around him, especially his clerks. They loved him, especially his driving clerks, and he became a father figure to many. For years, they would gather to celebrate his birthday, a tradition which I hope will continue. In addition to being a prominent judge and mentor, Allen was a beloved husband, father, and grandfather. He met his wife, Janet, at a Jewish singles resort in New Hampshire. Noticing her from across a crowded room, he walked over and asked her to dance. The next day, Janet invited him to sit next to her on the grass at a lecture. And the rest, as they say, is history. Janet and Alan were married on September 13th, 1959 in Philadelphia at the Curtis Arboretum, thus beginning an incredible almost 66 years of marriage. Alan and Janet settled in Westport together, where they welcomed their 3 children, Andy, Debbie, and Nathaniel. As a father, Alan was warm, loving, and loyal, and while he could be tough, his children never doubted his love for them. He instilled in them a love of learning and a deep loyalty and connection to family. And though he worked hard, he still found time for them. Some Saturdays, he would take them to the office where they would run around and play with the copy machine. He took them to baseball games at Yankee Stadium and never missed a chance, of course, to watch the New York football Giants with them every Sunday they played. For Alan and his family, though, equally sacred to Sunday night football was Friday night Shabbat. Janet would make a delicious dinner, and the family would gather for blessings and quality time. They were also deeply involved with this synagogue, Temple Israel, enjoying a close relationship with our former senior rabbi of blessed memory, Rabbi Rubenstein, and joining for every holiday and many Shabbat services. He served on our synagogue's board and loved taking his children to second-day Rosh Hashanah services, where he enjoyed schmoozing with all his friends, and I'm sure a little bit of praying as well. Alan's death marks the end of 97 years of vibrant life. Although nothing can replace his physical presence in the world, his memory lives on through all of you, through his loved ones. In the Song of Songs it is written, "For love is stronger than death. It is the flame of God." The love you have for Alan and his love for you, the ways he taught you and inspired you and made you laugh, and the memories of the good times you shared, these are things that death has not and cannot touch. This is a poem called "When Great Trees Fall" by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Our gathering here will be followed immediately by a burial at Temple Shalom Cemetery in Norwalk. The family will hold Shiva today at their family home, 62 Terra Nova Circle in Westport, from 5 to 8 p.m. with a brief minyan service at 6. I would also let you know that we'll read Alan's name on our Temple Israel Kaddish list this Shabbat and every Shabbat throughout the period of Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period. Our Shabbat services are open to all. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be a member. You're welcome to come and say Kaddish with us. Our services begin every Friday at 6:30, and you're welcome to join us right here in our sanctuary or on our live stream as well. I'll invite us to rise now for the memorial prayer, El Male Rachamim. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Keroshim Uteharim, Kezohar Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Yakirenu, Shehalach Leolamo, Ba'al Rachamim Yastirem, Beseter Kenafav Lolamim, Vitzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, Ve'anuach Meshalom Al Mishkavo, Ve'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Alan Nevas, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We'll invite Alan's grandchildren to walk beside the casket and Alan's family to follow. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom,
Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.